The bass from the speakers throbbed through the walls before I even stepped inside. Music spilled out of the mansion like a pulse, as if the entire city was beating to my cousin Ryan's rhythm tonight. His name glowed on the LED screen above the entrance. Ryan's Victory Bash. I stood at the gate for a moment, my palms cold despite the warm summer air. Everyone from our extended family was inside. Cousins, uncles, aunts, even old neighbors who hadn't been invited to anything for years. That was Ryan. He loved an audience, especially when he had something to prove. And tonight, I knew exactly who his target was. Me. Ryan had always been the golden child. Perfect grades, perfect car, perfect friends. He wore his confidence like a tailored suit, and his smile was the kind that made people lean closer without realizing it. But behind that smile was a sharp edge, one he used whenever he felt threatened. I, on the other hand, was the cousin who faded into the background. Quiet, obsessed with music no one cared about. The one relatives patted on the shoulder and asked, "So, still chasing that hobby?" As if my dream of being a songwriter was a child's game I hadn't grown out of. Walking through the entrance, the light hit me. Strobes of blue and gold, people dancing, laughter spilling across the grand hall. And then I saw him, Ryan, in a designer jacket, holding court at the center of the room. His voice cut through the music, louder than the DJ's track, sharper than the laughter. "Look who finally showed up," he called, spotting me near the door. The crowd turned their heads. His grin widened. "Did you get lost on the way? Or were you still writing poems no one will ever read?" The laughter that followed hit harder than the bass. I forced a smile, my throat dry. "Good to see you too, Ryan." But he wasn't done. He never was. "Come on, don't be shy. Tonight's about success, achievements, careers, things people celebrate. Do you have anything to share?" The crowd chuckled, eyes darting to me and back to him, waiting for the punchline. It was a familiar stage. Me in the spotlight, him as the ringmaster. And yet, what burned wasn't his words. I had grown used to them. What burned was the way everyone else leaned in, entertained by my silence. I slipped further inside, pretending not to hear, but the sting followed me like smoke. My chest tightened with that old mixture of shame and defiance, the one I had carried since childhood. He wanted me small tonight, invisible, the cousin who never measured up. But as the lights swept across the dance floor, a thought buried deep inside me began to stir. Ryan had the crowd, the mansion, the spotlight. Yet none of them knew what was coming. The party seemed to grow louder the deeper I walked in. Every corner was bursting with people. Faces I half recognized from family gatherings, old classmates, even a few influencers Ryan must have paid to show up. The chandelier above glittered like 1,000 eyes, all watching, all judging. I slipped past a group of cousins who were busy taking selfies near the champagne fountain. Their laughter cut off the moment they noticed me. One of them, Sana, raised her brows. "Didn't expect you here," she said, not unkindly, but with that tone, the one that said I didn't belong. I muttered something about just dropping by, and kept moving. It wasn't that I hated Ryan. Somewhere under all the mockery, we had shared childhood afternoons, cricket matches in the driveway, stolen snacks from the kitchen. But somewhere along the way, when my grades dipped and my head filled with melodies instead of equations, the balance shifted. He grew taller, louder, brighter. I grew quieter. He became the story. I became the contrast. And he loved it. "Ladies and gentlemen." Ryan's voice boomed from the DJ's mic. He was standing on a raised platform now, basking in the glow of neon. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight to celebrate what hard work and vision can achieve." Applause. Whistles. "And of course," he added with a smirk, "for teaching us that some dreams are better left as, well, dreams." His eyes flicked to me like a knife. The crowd followed his gaze. The laughter wasn't cruel, not entirely. It was worse than that. It was entertained. Heat crept up my neck. My fists clenched at my sides. The music swelled back up, but the damage had been done. His words lingered longer than any beat. I drifted toward the back of the hall, where the music was softer and the crowd thinner. A table with empty glasses sat abandoned near a side door. I leaned against it, trying to steady my breathing. And then I saw him, Malik, the DJ. He was bent over his laptop, headphones crooked around his neck, scrolling through a playlist. His head bobbed lightly, lost in rhythm. We'd met once before, months ago, at a low-key cafe performance. I'd handed him a flash drive with a demo track, half expecting him to toss it. He'd listened. He'd nodded. But he hadn't said much. Now, watching him adjust the sound, a flicker of hope lit in me. Did he remember? The thought was dangerous. I had spent years burying my music under silence whenever family was around. To them, it was a hobby, a stubborn refusal to grow up. If Ryan's mockery tonight was fire, my music was gasoline. Still, I couldn't stop myself from whispering the question in my head. What if? The crowd erupted again near the stage. Ryan had launched into another story about his rise. Each line peppered with digs that landed just close enough to me for everyone to get the message. I pressed my palms against the cool surface of the table, staring at Malik's hands as they hovered above the controls. My chest ached with something sharp, not just shame this time, but something closer to defiance. Because if he did remember, then tonight might not belong to Ryan after all. The music dipped, and the crowd cheered as Ryan grabbed the mic again. His face shone in the spotlight, sweat glinting like proof of his effort, his dominance. "Let's play a game," he announced, grinning as if the idea had just come to him. "Since my dear cousin decided to bless us with his presence tonight, why don't we give him a moment on stage? I mean, everyone deserves their 5 seconds of fame, right?" The crowd whistled, some clapping, others laughing in anticipation. My stomach dropped. "No, thanks," I said quickly, trying to step back. But Ryan gestured to 2 of his friends near the dance floor, and they blocked my path with playful grins that felt more like traps. "Come on," Ryan pressed, voice amplified so no one could miss it. "Tell us one of your deep lyrics. Or better yet, sing something. Let's see what you've been hiding all these years." Laughter rippled again, the kind that curled around you like smoke, suffocating. For a heartbeat, I considered running, just disappearing through the side door and leaving the night to him as always. But something in me cracked. Maybe it was the years of being measured against him, or the sting of seeing my uncle smirk knowingly, or the memory of my mother's quiet sighs when relatives praised Ryan. Or maybe it was Malik, the DJ, watching from the booth with a face unreadable, his hand resting on the controls as if waiting. I stepped forward, the lights washing me in sudden brightness. My voice trembled, but I forced it out. "You want me to sing?" The room hushed. Even the laughter paused, waiting for the disaster. "I'll sing when you can match me beat for beat," I said. Gasps scattered through the hall. It wasn't much of a challenge, more like desperation disguised as bravado, but the silence that followed gave me something I hadn't felt all night. Power. Ryan's smirk faltered for half a second, but he caught himself quickly. "Oh, that's cute. The poet wants to battle." He raised his arms to the crowd. "Shall we give him the mic?" Cheers erupted, hungry for drama. The mic was shoved into my hand. My throat was dry, my heart racing so hard I thought it might shake the sound system. I glanced toward Malik. His eyes flicked to me, then back to the laptop. For a second, just a second, I saw the corner of his mouth tilt upward. And then he hit play. The opening chords filled the hall, and my body froze. It wasn't a random track. It wasn't one of Ryan's curated playlists. It was mine, my demo, the one I'd left with Malik months ago, never expecting it to live outside that flash drive. The room erupted in confusion at first, whispers darting between people as they tried to place the song. And then eyes turned to me wide, curious. The spotlight burned hotter, but this time it didn't feel like fire. Felt like air. Ryan's grin stiffened. "What is this?" I lifted the mic to my lips, the weight of years pressing on me. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel small. I felt necessary. And as the beat dropped, I knew there was no turning back. The first notes of my song pulsed through the speakers, rich and alive, filling every corner of the hall. I had written it late one night when the weight of comparison pressed so hard on my chest that I couldn't breathe. Every lyric was a confession, Every beat a heartbeat I hadn't dared to share. And now, here it was, echoing against crystal chandeliers, pouring into the ears of people who had never once cared to listen. My hands trembled around the mic. For a second, I thought I'd choke. The crowd stared at me, waiting, half mocking, half curious. I saw uncles smirking, cousins whispering, girls holding up their phones to capture my fall. And I almost gave it to them. Almost. But then the words broke free. My voice cracked at first, raw and uneven, but it was real. I closed my eyes and let the lyrics spill out. About being unseen, about shadows swallowing light, about carving music out of silence. Each line sliced me open, and yet, with every verse, the tremor in my voice steadied. A hush settled over the room. The same people who had laughed minutes ago now leaned closer. I heard someone whisper, "Is this his song?" Ryan's smirk faltered. He leaned toward one of his friends, muttering something, but his eyes never left me. The hook dropped, the bass shook the floor, and the crowd gasped as if they hadn't expected it to sound professional. This wasn't some amateur poem. It was a track with teeth. Malik had mixed it well, layering the beat so it wrapped around my voice like armor. But inside, I was still bleeding. Every note brought memories crashing in. The nights my father told me to focus on real work. The way my mother's silence filled the space after relatives praised Ryan. The years of biting my tongue at family dinners, while Ryan's successes were celebrated like national holidays. Singing wasn't just performance now. It was survival. I opened my eyes and locked onto Ryan. For a heartbeat, the room dissolved. No crowd, no chandeliers, just him and me. His face was unreadable, but his jaw was tight, and in that silence, I knew he hadn't expected this. Not from me. The second verse cut deeper. Lines about betrayal wrapped in smiles. About voices that tried to drown mine. About turning scars into rhythm. The words weren't subtle. Everyone in the hall knew exactly who they were aimed at. Murmurs spread like wildfire. I felt exposed, naked under the lights, but I didn't stop. Because with every lyric, something inside me shifted. The shame that had clung to me for years loosened its grip, replaced by a trembling, fragile defiance. The track neared its bridge, the beat thinning, space opening for silence. My chest rose and fell, sweat dripping down my neck. For the first time that night, the silence belonged to me. And in that silence, I asked myself the question I had avoided for years. Was I singing to prove myself to them, or finally to myself? The answer trembled at the edge of my lips as the final chorus loomed, ready to crash down like a storm. The chorus hit like thunder. I let my voice rip through the hall, no longer careful, no longer afraid. Every syllable carried the weight of years, the swallowed comebacks, the laughter I'd endured, the nights I whispered lyrics into a cracked phone mic while the world slept. The beat surged under me, and I wasn't just singing anymore. I was burning. The crowd wasn't laughing now. They were still caught between awe and disbelief. Phone cameras glowed like fireflies in the dark, capturing every word I once thought would die inside my notebook. And then it happened. The bridge dropped, the part of the song I had written in anger, in pure defiance. My voice rose over the stripped-down beat, and I spat the line I'd never shown anyone. You crowned yourself king, but your kingdom's built on silence. Gasps cracked through the crowd. Heads turned to Ryan. Every ear in the hall knew who those words belonged to. Ryan's face drained of color, then flushed red, his perfect composure unraveling in real time. He stepped forward, shouting over the music, "Cut it, Malik, cut it off." But Malik didn't. His hand stayed firm on the mixer, jaw clenched, eyes locked on me like he'd been waiting for this moment as much as I had. The final chorus roared back in, louder than before, and the room erupted. Some cheered, others stood stunned, but no one looked at Ryan anymore. Every gaze, every phone camera, every heartbeat had shifted. To me, I could barely breathe. My chest felt like it would split open. Not from fear this time, from release. Years of humiliation poured out of me in that song, and for the first time, I wasn't drowning in the crowd's judgment. I was floating above it. Ryan shoved his way through people, his voice breaking with rage. "This is my party. My night." But his words bounced off walls, no longer listening. The music had claimed them. When the last note hit, long, raw, trembling, the silence that followed was seismic. Pause stretched thin. And then applause. Not polite, not pitying. Wild, uneven, real. My throat closed. Tears threatened, but I blinked them back. Because this wasn't just their applause. It was mine. Proof I existed, proof I mattered, proof I had a voice no amount of Ryan's mockery could erase. Ryan stood frozen, his fists balled, his kingdom collapsing around him. And in that silence between us, I saw it. Fear. Not of me, but of the truth, that the crowd had tasted something real, and no performance of his could compete. I lowered the mic, my hands shaking, and whispered into it, barely audible but carried through the speakers. "I don't need your stage anymore." The words landed heavier than any lyric. And as the lights washed over me, I realized the party was no longer his. It had never been. The applause faded slowly, like waves pulling back into the sea, but its echo clung to me. I stood under the lights, chest heaving, my voice still trembling in the air, though the song had ended minutes ago. My throat ached, my palms were slick, but inside me, a strange stillness settled. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a shadow. Ryan's voice cracked against the silence. "Enough!" He tried to laugh, to shrug it off, but it sounded brittle, desperate. It was a joke, just a bit of fun. But no one was laughing anymore. Eyes that once followed him now lingered on me, some wide with surprise, others soft with something I hadn't expected. Respect. It wasn't triumph I felt. Not revenge either. Just release. The weight of years slid off my shoulders with the sweat and the song, leaving me lighter, almost fragile. I stepped down from the stage. Phones lowered, whispers swirled, but the path opened for me. Not out of fear, not mockery, but recognition. The kind you can't fake. Ryan stood stiff near the platform, jaw tight. For a moment I thought he'd lash out. But when our eyes met, he looked away first. That was enough. At the booth, Malik gave me a small nod, subtle but steady. No words, just acknowledgement. And in that nod was a reminder. I hadn't done this alone. Someone had believed enough to press play. I slipped out through the side door, the night air slapping cool against my skin. Outside, the street was quiet, distant from the chaos inside. I leaned against the wall, closing my eyes, letting the silence rush in. The song still vibrated in my bones. My song. For years, I had waited for applause, for validation, for someone, anyone, to say I mattered. But standing there, under the night sky, I realized the truth. The applause wasn't the victory. The victory was that I had sung at all, that I had spoken when silence was safer, that I had chosen myself over humiliation. The door opened behind me. Sanaa, the cousin who'd raised her brows at me earlier, stepped out. She hesitated, then said softly, "That was real." No smirk this time, just honesty. Then she slipped back inside, leaving her words to linger. I smiled faintly, not at her, not at Ryan, but at the thought that maybe, just maybe, my voice had finally cut through. The night stretched wide above me, endless and waiting. I didn't know what came next. Another song? Another silence? Another battle? But for the first time it didn't matter, because I wasn't invisible anymore. I walked down the street, away from the mansion, away from the noise, each step lighter than the last. And though the party raged on behind me, the echo of my song followed, not fading, not breaking, but growing louder, as if the night itself was carrying it forward. Sparkle's final lines: "Some nights, the music ends when the lights go out. But on rare nights it begins, and refuses to be silenced."